All right, let's talk about the latest. 2024 is upon us, and there are new news articles popping up about whether or not Kamala Harris really has what it takes to continue as vice president, as Joe Biden's pick for vice president. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen from the Washington Post. It's always noteworthy when you get elite media like the Post or the Times writing these types of stories, because that means that political elites are basically planting these stories with the Post and with other outlets. Headline here: some Democrats are worried about Harris's political prospects at a pivotal point in Biden's term. Many party activists are not sure the vice president has shown she is up to winning the top job. And of course, obvious context here is when you're talking about Joe Biden being potentially, if he wins re-elect, 86 years old at the end of his next term, there's a real question whether he even makes it through that term. Then she would step right into that top job. And if he does make it through that term, she would be the obvious, next in line to take the helm as the Democratic nominee. So in this article, they interviewed all of these state level party activists, and something like a dozen of them offered concerns about, whether or not she is up to the task. They say such concerns about Harris's political strength were repeated often by more than a dozen Democratic leaders in key states interviewed for the story, some speaking on the condition of anonymity to convey candid thoughts. To give you one example of the type of concerns that are being raised, the former chair of the Cobb County Democrats in Georgia, I think this individual just stepped down, said, people are poised to pounce on anything, any misstep, any gaffe, anything Kamala says, and so she's probably not getting the benefit of the doubt. She said they don't know enough about what Kamala's doing, and added, quote, it doesn't help that she's not that adept as a communicator. So these are people who, are hardcore Democratic partisans, are inclined to be in Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's camp, believe in the power of representation politics and Kamala Harris being there as the potential first Black woman president. But they have watched how this has unfolded for her, and they have not been particularly impressed, and they are concerned about whether or not she could ultimately win and ultimately handle the job. So the fact that you have this much discontent within the party establishment of the Democratic Party voicing these concerns, and the Washington Post picking it up and running with it, is a very interesting thing.
Yeah, we always pay attention to this. Why? Because what matters is the internal chatter and what's being leaked. And what's obviously being leaked are people close to the White House who have watched how terrible and unpopular that she has remained in the polls all throughout the Biden presidency. I mean, she's probably been one of the least liked vice presidents in modern times. I mean, I really think you'd have to go all the way back to Dick Cheney. Even then, Republicans actually liked Dick Cheney. At least a lot of the base did. It doesn't seem that Democrats particularly feel all that enthusiastic. I think Dan Quayle is probably the best example. And again, that's not even in my lifetime that happened. That's how far back we'd have to think to somebody who is so unpopular and actively a drag on the ticket for a sitting president of the United States, and just a lack of political skill. That's the problem that they face here. But how are they going to get out of it? I just think, look, I think this is all Washington talk. Chatter. At the end of the day, how do you ditch her? The Black woman, you can't do anything about it.
That's right. I think that's exactly right. They put themselves in a trap of their own making.
Yeah.
I mean, the person who told Joe not to pick Kamala was actually his wife,
yes,
Jill.
And she was
totally right about it. I'm sure now he's like, damn, I should have listened to her. But I agree with you. I don't see how they back out of it. I would not be surprised if it was Pete Buttigieg and Liz Smith and his camp who are planning some of these stories, trying to drive a wedge or exposing a wedge that really already exists. And I think the way that the Democratic Party, like these local county chairs and whatever, the way they feel about it, and the way a lot of the Democratic base feels about both Joe and Kamala, is a level of personal warmth. It's not like they despise them, but deep concerns about whether they are actually up to the task to win again. And remember, Joe Biden's whole case in 2020, the whole reason he is there is because of electability. This is a top of mind concern for the Democratic base. It is the thing they care about seemingly more than anything else. And so when you see the fumbling performances from Joe, when you see the fumbling performances with Kamala, it really strikes at the core of what their key concern is for the future of the Democratic Party. We also noted this. Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has certainly proven herself to be a highly political animal, was asked about a Biden candidacy, and she was very, very clear that she supported Joe Biden for running for another term and was behind him for the next time around. But then she got asked about whether Kamala Harris should be on the ticket as the vice presidential nominee again. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Speaking of you're having run for president, should Joe Biden run again for president? He'll be 86 by the time his second term is over.
Yes, he should run again.
Why?
And he is running again because he has gotten a tremendous amount done. It's been 2 years. He's had the skinniest possible majority in the United States Senate and only a very small majority in the House. And yet look at what we've done.
If he's that old in his second term, the vice presidency becomes even more important. Should Kamala Harris be his choice the second time around?
I really want to defer to what makes Biden comfortable on his team. I've known Kamala for a long time. I like Kamala. I knew her back when she was an attorney general and I was still teaching, and we worked on the housing crisis together. So we go way back, but they have to be a team, and my sense is they are. I don't mean that by suggesting I think there are any problems. I think they are.
So anyway, she really hedges there. She won't really say, well, whatever Joe feels comfortable with, I'm not going to really say. Now, after the fact, she did kind of come in and try to do a cleanup job. But
okay, well, she wouldn't say it in
revealing
the
moment there.
Yeah.
Very revealing
What do you
moment
think?
there.
Do you think that she's going to do? She thinks that she could still
She's
do
so
it?
delusional.
Yeah.
She
How
might.
could you possibly?
She really might.
Right.
I mean, just remember, like, part of the reason why, going back to my 2020 Democratic primary trauma, part of the reason that she like held out and stabbed Bernie in the back and all of that was because she was like imagining that she was going to be the vice presidential pick, which was always fanciful. And then she thought maybe she'd get like a cabinet pick or whatever, also fanciful. And so, ends up she was wrong about all of those things, and she's still in the Senate, which is a perfectly, fine and important place to be. But she has demonstrated that level of delusion before, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. She's 73 years old. Spring chicken in Senate years.
In Democratic politics.
In normal years, that's pretty old. And, I was like, well, maybe this is her last chance. I mean, this is basically the last shot that you have
That's true.
at higher elected office, realistically, if you look at an actuarial table. So maybe this is the right time, even though it is, what, a 0.01% chance or whatever of it actually happening.
I mean, okay, number one, they're not ditching Kamala because they can't get around the trap that they made it for themselves and the way that they've set up, identity politics as central with the Democratic base. So that's number one. Number two, even if in some crazy scenario Kamala steps aside or whatever happens, they're not picking Liz. Mm-hmm. They're picking Pete. They're picking Pete. I mean, he's the one, he's a kiss-ass extraordinaire. He's positioned himself with the donor class. And I mean, one thing that we noted, like in New Hampshire, he's now actually beating Biden, which is gross for a million reasons that Pete is on top. It is also a tremendous sign of weakness with Biden. But if they're looking at it and they were actually thinking about, okay, who would we pick for vice president? They would look at these sort of polls and imagine that, okay, Pete would bring something to the ticket here ultimately. Remember Joe said before, basically he wanted to build a bridge to the Pete Buttigiegs of the world. So, yeah, I think Elizabeth Warren, if that is the delusion she's harboring under, it is quite astonishing on a number of levels and fanciful on a number of levels.
Good luck. That's all I gotta say. Yeah.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.